Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how we have new leaks for Pokémon Winds and Waves with some pretty interesting implications here. So we're now living in a world where we've gotten the titles revealed for Winds and Waves, we've seen the starters, we've seen the gameplay with its first proper trailer, and it's pretty impressive, to most at least. I did a graphics comparison comparing Winds and Waves to what we've seen for both new Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and there are some substantial leaps here, so if you're curious on that analysis, I'll have it in the iCard and the end screen. But overall, people have been pretty impressed with what we've seen with Winds and Waves so far. A lot of the leaks that we've talked about in regards to this game have panned out and been confirmed, but from some of this stuff, there are some interesting implications here that also factor into some of the new leaks that just came out within the last couple days that also add even further implications to what to expect about this game, and it's pretty interesting, pretty cool, and pretty exciting. So that's what we're diving into today. Okay, we have something fun to talk about here. There has never been a better time to start playing this game. This month, Raid is celebrating its 7th anniversary, and they've gone all out with rewards for new players. And I'll be getting into those cool rewards in a few moments here. Ultimate Death Knight is back, the essential defense champion. He takes all the hits for your team and he heals himself just by watching enemies heal. And you can actually get him for free right now with the promo code UDKING if you are a new player. So I checked out the game myself for the very first time. It's free to play, and I gotta say, I have heard so much about Raid Shadow Legends, but I came away from it impressed. You can play on PC or mobile under the same account, and the presentation is strong. The visuals, music, the stories being told along with the voice acting, it's pretty engaging. I also found the gameplay loop of quickly jumping into back-to-back battles, unlocking more items and champions, and then going right back in with your improved team to be addicting. So I recommend checking this one out, especially now. For a limited time, new players after downloading the game via my link in the description or scanning my QR code can claim some great bonuses. You will get the $200 anniversary package, which instantly unlocks a huge starter pack with the legendary champion Krokmar the Devourer, plus epic champion Galapo the Recluse at level 25. As you level up to these different milestones, you will get even more rewards. And by using promo code RAID7 after downloading via my link, you will obtain the legendary spirit champion Pelops the Victor. Or if another champion suits your fancy, you will have the choice of any of these by using one of these promo codes instead. Plus, all players existing and new can get Pelops the Victor via the Classic Fusion event between March 5th and March 21st. So, what are you waiting for? Jump into Raid and join the celebration today. So going back to February 13th, this was a couple weeks before the Pokemon Presents, before the big trailer revealing Winds and Waves, we see this account, Ball Guy, who's considered to be one of the more reliable Pokemon leakers there are, and he shared this post here. Greetings, PD Trio. Slimy, large, bulbous tail, deep purple eyes, almost feminine. Thick green brow, little dark feet, almost like an angry baby. And puffy front side, tongue constantly out. So this was leaking these starters for Winds and Waves. Let's take a look. A puffy front side with tongue constantly out. Well, we look at Pombon. Its tongue is constantly out. It has a front puffy side, so that checks out right there. How about a thick green brow with little dark feet? Well, thick green brow with little dark feet almost appears angry. A lot of the memes have been about that. Well, there you go. That part has also been proven true. But what about Gekwa? Well, what was said was, again, slimy, large bulbous tail, deep purple eyes, almost feminine. So looking here, deep purple eyes, almost feminine. It's got almost kind of like that sort of, like a mascara, makeup kind of feminine look. It has a bulbous tail, and well, it is a gecko of some kind, so it being slimy also checks out as well. So very clearly, this post right here definitely strongly leaked the starters for Pokemon Winds and Waves. So I think it should just sort of go to show the credibility of Ball Guy. Now, let's keep in mind that nothing is 100% confirmed until confirmed. So yes, still take these things with a grain of salt. but Ball Guy is considered to be pretty reliable, so with these other leaks, I would definitely say we should strongly entertain them. So what's being heard here is this. Byler Pilled had asked, can we expect real-time catching in Winds and Waves? And Ball Guy responds, you can. At one point, I heard of a mechanic for charging balls before release, unsure if this remained. So I think this is really interesting, talking about how you can expect real-time catching. This sounds a lot like Legends ZA and Legends Arceus. And what's interesting about that is we have seen some beta images from the past. This is a prior leak that was showing some test footage for Winds and Waves early on into development. But as you see here, there's a whole bunch of Charizards on screen. What's the point of this image? Well, if this game is going to function somewhat like the Legends games, where there's a whole bunch of Pokemon like this in front of you, where maybe you can mass catch them, that would make a lot of sense, which does kind of fit in with this leak we're hearing here from Ball Guy about how you can catch Pokemon in real time, very much like the Legends games. However, he is also mentioning this mechanic for charging balls. As he further elaborates here, catching system remains, rather I haven't heard of something more on the additional Pokeball mechanics. That wording's a little off, I gotta say, but here someone DK asks, by charging balls, do you mean about holding it for a certain time like the smash attacks in Smash Bros? Ball Guy confirms, correct. So he's at least suggesting that not only is catching going to be happening in real time similar to Legends games, but you'll be able to hold them and charge them up. Perhaps to put more oomph, more power, more force into them, maybe more distance. So that's some interesting stuff there, and I gotta say that that element of the Legends games is something I really liked, just kind of running in and catching Pokemon very quickly. That's fun. It makes filling up your Pokedex a lot more interesting as well, but I also wonder, are they going to have rewards or benefits for catching more of the same species? You see, in the Legends games, there were rewards for catching more of the same species. In fact, you were encouraged to do so because by catching more of a particular species, you could progress in your Pokedex and get different moves or items and such. There were different challenges with doing this. So I would like to see that system integrated into Winds and Waves. I would think that would make catching all the more interesting, make exploration a lot more fun. Because if you've already seen a Pokemon once and you've caught it, and you just continually see it there, it will be less interesting unless you can also catch them in the same way you can in Legends. So hopefully you stick with this, it does make a lot of sense. And actually going back to a leak from November, this is also involving Ball Guy. Villanelle had asked, do you know if Gaia utilizes a turn-based or real-time battling system? I'd really like to know. So we were just talking about the catching elements, but what about battling? That part we haven't seen yet. But Ball Guy said back in November, the greatest example I can provide for this is a more seamless version of Legend Arceus' combat. Automatically occurring battles, free roam movement, with a plethora of additions from ZA such as Area of Effect for moves. TLDR, it is turn-based, yes, and the best possible implementation. So, according to Ball Guy, the battles will still be turn-based, but there will be a lot of elements brought in from the Legends games. So being able to move around, adjust the camera, I think that's going to really help with just seeing the combat in different ways, which I really appreciated for the Legends games. But there seems to be even more than that that's being done here. Like having Area of Effect attacks, that would suggest that the placement of the Pokemon also matters here, which may mean the Pokemon may follow you as well. But it's still turn-based at the same time, not in real time with cooldown. So I do wonder how that works. That almost seems a bit contradictory here, so maybe this leak is wrong, or perhaps something is lost in translation here, or maybe you are allowed to move a certain amount within a certain amount of time. So perhaps there are some real-time elements involved, even though the actual attacks may still be turn-based. I'll say I think it's really interesting that they didn't show off any combat in the Winds and Waves trailer. That's still something that they're holding back that's a secret for now. And that may be by design. There may be something new to the way the combat works, so when we see that, it could be along the lines of what we're hearing about here, even though it seems a little confusing. But another interesting little leak that's popped out in regards to Winds and Waves is this beta image of Blastoise at the beach. Now, keep in mind, this is a beta image. This is from early on in development, Supposedly this is from early on before they switched on to just making the game exclusive to Switch 2. But even still, from what I'm seeing here of a beta image with it in mind, it's a very early on piece of footage that doesn't have all the details put in yet. I still like what I'm seeing here. We're still seeing more of those cool water effects. There's rain also as well interacting with the environment. You can see the trees are wet in the background. We can see that Blastoise looks like he has a little bit of a moistness to him as well. So it's at least interesting to look at. I don't know if I can take away any sort of grand realizations here, but it's definitely a cool little look at the beta for Winds and Waves. Also, Blastoise confirmed, probably, right? But here's the typical reminder. If you find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, please do. It would make for a huge difference. Now, this part isn't a leak, but it is interesting. So, Pokemon Millennium had posted about this theory of theirs, about the logo of the game. So, they noticed that on the hats for the trainers, there is kind of like a half symbol for each of them that seems to match the complete symbol when you put them together that we see on the logo. And we know from prior Pokemon games, there's usually some sort of hint to like a core new mechanic with the logo here. So it's interesting to see that the logo is actually split off into two and it combines into one. What might this be about? Is it possible that there's only a certain element of the core mechanic that you have access to in Winds and another in Waves? I'll say that the top part here looks like Wind and this bottom part here looks like Waves. I do think logistically that all the core gameplay mechanics should still be intact. I think it would be an issue if the gameplay is vastly different across games. I think just having maybe a few different trainers, perhaps a few different gym leaders in Pokemon is really the extent of the differences, but we'll see what they do once the games actually come out. However, what I will say though, is that this is further hinting at what we've heard about, that weather will be playing a role to the core mechanic of the game. So there is this other leak from the beta where we can see that some Pokemon, their models can be impacted by some sort of weird effect. You see that Pikachu is very like blobby here, and what's been speculated is that Pikachu is adopting some cloud-like effects here. Perhaps there are Majin boosted abilities that also lead to some weather moves here, which based off the leaks is thought to be kind of like the core new mechanic to the game, and from what we just talked about with the logos, that does seem to make sense here. They combine to the logo we see in the actual Winds and Waves like titles, the Winds part, the Waves part. And something else that's interesting about this is that we have seen this weird cloud from the Winds and Waves trailer. You take a look at this, you see kind of like this swirl here, then we look at the logo for Winds, and there's certainly a similarity there. It's been theorized that this weird cloud ties into the weather abilities that you'll be able to use in the battles for Winds and Waves. How exactly they're going to work, I am unsure. But I'll at least say it's interesting that we're seeing a weird cloud here. Maybe it's just one random rain cloud, just to be clear, but I do feel like there's something odd about this, and it's done intentionally to show off in the trailer to hint at more. It would be interesting if there are lingering effects with the weather moves. We're talking about how there's more real-time elements with the combat. Maybe this even plays into the weather. Maybe Pokemon weather effects can impact the literal environment and not just the battle itself, and there could be lingering effects like what we see here with this cloud. Maybe even this cloud could be a hint that there is a Pokemon imbued with Majin weather powers over there, so you want to go and check that out to potentially catch that Pokemon. Maybe this would be like the equivalent to finding Pokemon with Terra powers or something like that. Talking it through, I do feel like that's what kind of makes the most sense from what we understand so far. So that's my bet. This little cloud here is actually a lingering effect from a Pokemon with weather powers, extra weather powers, and it's a sign for you to go and check that out to potentially catch that Pokemon that has that extra weather move power. We'll see if the theory checks out. But now that we've seen the Winds and Waves trailer, we've seen how the game looks, we've seen some leaks get confirmed already, something I want to go back to is this tweet from Ball Guy here, where he just says, ready, and here it says, in case of emergency, break the glass, and we just see a V with this character here covering its mouth. it's been speculated that this is hinting at voice acting in Pokémon Winds and Waves. If that's what they're actually doing with Winds and Waves, I think this would be huge. Not having voice acting in the last few generations has been a common criticism. You look at a lot of the cutscenes and clearly it looks like voice acting would be there. There just isn't, so it kind of feels awkward. They've already been animating a lot of the characters as if there was voice acting, so to actually just add in the voice acting would make for a huge difference. It would not be so jarring and actually be more immersive for the story. And so considering how great Winds and Waves look visually already, if they are going to bring in voice acting, if they're going to bring in these catching elements from Legends while still retaining the turn-based combat of the traditional Pokemon games, but all mixed together happily, we could be looking at something that is going to be really special here, that is probably going to be the most appealing, high-polished Pokemon games in a very long time. Which, you know, I would say, considering that they're taking even longer than expected, not a 4-year gap, which is the longest gap we've seen in many generations, but even going into 2027 being beyond 4 years, maybe 4.5 or so, that does give me more confidence that the polish here, the level of it, is going to lead to some pretty special things. But what do you all think? What do you make of these latest leaks for Pokemon Winds and Waves? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, you can check out all those 7th anniversary raid rewards by clicking the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code you see on the screen here. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.